The spaceship descended through Earth's atmosphere, its metallic surface glowing red from the heat. Inside, a group of alien students pressed their faces against the windows, their wide eyes filled with a mix of excitement and fear. Earth, the infamous Deathworld, was finally in view. "I can't believe we're actually here," one of the students whispered, his voice trembling. "Do you think the stories are true? Is it really as dangerous as they say?" Another student, taller and more confident, nodded. "Of course it is. That's why we're here, to study it. But don't worry, we'll be fine as long as we stick to the rules." The rules. They had been drilled into the students' minds from the moment they signed up for this intergalactic study program. Never wander off alone. Always follow your human guides. And whatever you do, don't touch anything without permission. Earth was beautiful, but it was also deadly. The ship landed with a soft thud in the middle of a lush green field. The students grabbed their bags and stepped outside, their feet sinking into the soft soil. The air was warm and filled with the scent of flowers and fresh grass. For a moment, it was hard to believe this place was called a Deathworld. But then they saw it. In the distance, a massive storm was brewing. Dark clouds swirled in the sky, and lightning crackled across the horizon. The students froze, their hearts pounding. They had never seen anything like it. "Welcome to Earth," a voice said behind them. The students turned to see a group of humans walking toward them. They looked ordinary, 2 arms, 2 legs, and friendly smiles. But there was something in their eyes, something sharp and calculating, that made the students uneasy. "I'm your guide," the lead human said, extending a hand. "You can call me John. Don't worry about the storm, it's just a normal afternoon here. You'll get used to it." The students exchanged nervous glances. Normal? As they followed John to a nearby vehicle, one of the students noticed something strange. Hidden among the trees was a large, metallic structure. It looked like a building, but it was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and the air around it seemed to hum with energy. "What's that?" the student asked, pointing. John glanced at the structure and quickly looked away. "Nothing important. Just an old research facility. Now, let's get going. We have a lot to see." But the student couldn't shake the feeling that John was hiding something. As they drove away, he kept looking back at the structure, his mind racing with questions. That night, as the students settled into their quarters, the storm finally hit. The wind howled outside, and rain pounded against the windows. The students huddled together, their fear growing with every crash of thunder. "I don't like this place," one of them said. "It's too wild. Too unpredictable." The taller student nodded. "That's why it's called a Deathworld. But there's something else going on here. Did you see that building? It didn't look human. And John, he was lying about it." The others stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there's more to this planet than we've been told. And I think we need to find out what it is." The room fell silent as the students considered his words. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, a new kind of storm was brewing, one of curiosity and determination. The next morning, while the humans were busy preparing for the day's activities, the students slipped away. They made their way back to the mysterious structure, their hearts pounding with every step. As they approached, the humming grew louder, and the air seemed to crackle with energy. The symbols on the walls glowed faintly, as if alive. "This isn't just a research facility," the taller student said. "This is something ancient. Something powerful." They pushed open the heavy doors and stepped inside. The air was cool and filled with the scent of metal and dust. The walls were lined with strange machines, and in the center of the room was a large, glowing orb. The students stared at it in awe. "What is this place?" one of them whispered. Before anyone could answer, a voice echoed through the room. You shouldn't be here. They turned to see John standing in the doorway, his expression dark and unreadable. Behind him were several other humans, their faces equally grim. The students froze, their hearts racing. They had discovered something they weren't supposed to see, and now, they were in danger. The room fell silent as John and the other humans stepped inside, their eyes fixed on the alien students. The glowing orb in the center of the room cast eerie shadows on their faces, making them look even more intimidating. I told you this area was off-limits, John said, his voice calm but firm. You shouldn't have come here. The taller student, trying to hide his fear, stepped forward. We were just curious. We didn't mean any harm. John's expression softened slightly, but his eyes remained sharp. Curiosity is dangerous on Earth. This planet has a way of surprising people. Now, come with us. We need to talk. The students exchanged nervous glances but had no choice. They followed John and the other humans out of the facility and into a nearby building. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The humans sat the students down in a small room and closed the door. What you saw in that facility, John began, is classified. It's not something we share with outsiders. But since you've already seen it, I suppose we have no choice but to explain. The students leaned forward, their curiosity outweighing their fear. John sighed and continued. Earth isn't just a death world because of its weather or its wildlife. It's a death world because of its history. Long ago, before humans even existed, this planet was a battleground for alien civilizations. They came here to test their weapons, their technology, and their strength. But something went wrong. The experiments got out of control, and the planet became unstable. The students stared at him in shock. You mean Earth was a testing ground? One of them asked. John nodded. Yes. And when humans evolved, we inherited the mess they left behind. But we also inherited their technology. That facility you found? It's one of many. They're filled with advanced tools and weapons that we've been studying for centuries. That's how we've survived, by learning from the mistakes of others. The taller student frowned. But why keep it a secret? Why not share this knowledge with the rest of the galaxy? John's expression darkened. Because not everyone can be trusted. Some species would use this technology for war, not peace. Earth's reputation as a death world keeps them away. It's our way of protecting ourselves, and the galaxy. The room fell silent as the students processed this information. It was a lot to take in. Earth wasn't just a dangerous planet, it was a treasure trove of ancient knowledge. And the humans were its guardians. So what happens now? One of the students asked. Are we in trouble? John shook his head. No. But you need to understand the gravity of the situation. What you've seen could put all of us at risk if it gets out. That's why we need your word that you'll keep this to yourselves. The students nodded, but the taller student couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. What about the orb? He asked. What does it do? John hesitated, as if weighing his words carefully. The orb is a relic. A piece of technology we haven't fully understood yet. It's powerful, but dangerous. That's why it's locked away. Before the students could ask more questions, a loud alarm blared through the building. The humans jumped to their feet, their faces filled with panic. What's going on? One of the students asked. John grabbed a device from his pocket and checked the screen. His face turned pale. We have a problem. Someone's trying to break into the facility. The students' hearts raced. Who? John didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the other humans and barked orders. Secure the perimeter. And get the students to safety. The students were quickly ushered out of the room and into a secure area. As they sat there, listening to the chaos outside, the taller student couldn't help but wonder if they had stumbled into something much bigger than they realized. "Do you think it's because of us?" one of the students whispered. The taller student shook his head. "No. This was already happening. We just got caught in the middle." Outside, the sound of shouting and machinery grew louder. The students could only imagine what was happening. Were they under attack? And if so, by whom? As the minutes passed, the tension in the room became unbearable. Finally, the door opened, and John stepped inside. He looked exhausted but relieved. "It's over," he said. "For now." The student stared at him, waiting for an explanation. John sighed and sat down. "We've been expecting this for a while. There are factions out there who want Earth's secrets. They'll stop at nothing to get them. That's why we have to be careful. That's why you have to be careful." The taller student frowned. "What do you mean?" John looked him straight in the eye. "I mean, you're part of this now. Whether you like it or not, you've seen too much. And if word gets out, you'll be in danger too." The room fell silent as the students realized the gravity of the situation. They had come to Earth to study its dangers, but now they were caught in a web of secrets and lies. And the worst part? They had no idea who to trust. The students sat in silence, their minds racing with questions. John's words echoed in their heads, "You're part of this now." What did that mean? Were they in danger? And who had tried to break into the facility? John stood up and motioned for the students to follow him. "Come on. There's something you need to see." The students exchanged nervous glances but didn't argue. They followed John through a series of hallways until they reached a large, heavily guarded door. John typed a code into a keypad, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside was a room filled with screens and monitors, each displaying different parts of the facility. In the center of the room was a holographic map of Earth, dotted with glowing points of light. "This is our control room," John explained. "From here, we monitor all the ancient sites across the planet. Each of those lights represents a facility like the one you found." The students stared at the map in awe. There were dozens of lights, spread across every continent. "How many facilities are there?" one of the students asked. "Hundreds," John replied. "And each one holds a piece of the puzzle. But we've only managed to unlock a fraction of their secrets." The taller student stepped forward, his curiosity outweighing his fear. "What kind of secrets?" John hesitated, as if deciding how much to reveal. "Advanced technology. Weapons. Knowledge about the universe that no one else has. But also, warnings." "Warnings?" John nodded. The aliens who came here long ago weren't just testing their technology. They were also running experiments. Dangerous ones. Some of those experiments are still active, buried deep underground. That's why we have to be careful. One wrong move, and we could unleash something we can't control." The students fell silent, the weight of John's words sinking in. Earth wasn't just a death world because of its natural dangers. It was also a ticking time bomb, filled with ancient horrors waiting to be awakened. "Is that what the orb is?" the taller student asked. "One of those experiments?" John's expression darkened. "The orb is different. We don't know exactly what it is, but we know it's powerful. And dangerous. That's why it's locked away." Before the students could ask more questions, one of the monitors beeped loudly. A human technician rushed over and began typing furiously on a keyboard. "What's going on?" John asked. The technician looked up, his face pale. "We've got movement at Site 17. Something's activating." John's eyes widened. "Site 17? That's one of the most unstable locations. If something's waking up there. He didn't finish the sentence, but the students could guess what he meant. Something bad was about to happen. We need to get there now, John said, turning to the students. And you're coming with us. The students' hearts raced. Why us? One of them asked. Because you've already seen too much, John replied. And because, you might be able to help. Some of the technology in these facilities responds better to non-human touch. It's a long shot, but it's worth a try. The students didn't have time to argue. They were quickly ushered into a vehicle and driven to Site 17, a remote location deep in the mountains. As they approached, they could see a faint glow coming from the ground, as if something was stirring beneath the surface. The facility at Site 17 was larger and more imposing than the one they had found earlier. Its walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to pulse with energy. The air around it was thick with tension, as if the very ground was alive. John and the humans led the students inside, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The deeper they went, the stronger the glow became. Finally, they reached a large chamber, where a massive machine was slowly coming to life. "What is that?" one of the students whispered. John shook his head. "We don't know. But if it fully activates, it could destroy everything within 100 miles. The taller student stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the machine. "What do you need us to do?" John handed him a small device. "This is a stabilizer. If we can attach it to the machine, we might be able to shut it down. But we need to get close enough to do that." The students nodded, their fear replaced by determination. They followed John and the humans as they approached the machine, their hearts pounding with every step. As they got closer, the machine began to hum louder, and the glow grew brighter. The air around them crackled with energy, making it hard to breathe. "Now!" John shouted. The taller student rushed forward and placed the stabilizer on the machine. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a loud click, the machine began to power down. The students let out a collective sigh of relief, but their celebration was short-lived. As the machine fell silent, the ground beneath them began to shake. "What's happening?" one of the students yelled. John's face turned pale. "We triggered something. The facility's defenses are activating." The walls around them began to shift, revealing hidden passages and strange devices. The air filled with the sound of grinding metal and hissing steam. "We need to get out of here," John shouted. The students didn't need to be told twice. They ran as fast as they could, following John and the humans through the twisting halls. But the facility seemed to be working against them, closing off exits and opening new dangers at every turn. Finally, they reached the surface, just as the ground behind them collapsed. They stood there, gasping for breath, as the facility sank into the earth. "What just happened?" one of the students asked. John shook his head. "I don't know. But one thing's clear, Earth's secrets are more dangerous than we thought. And if we're not careful, they could destroy us all." The group stood at the edge of the collapsed facility, staring at the massive crater that now marked the spot where Site 17 had once been. The air was thick with dust, and the ground still trembled faintly, as if the Earth itself was unsettled by what had happened. "We need to get back to the control room," John said, his voice tense. "If Site 17's collapse triggered something else, we need to know about it." The students followed him back to the vehicle, their minds racing with questions. What had they just witnessed? And what did it mean for Earth, and for them? As they drove back, the taller student couldn't stay silent any longer. "John, what was that machine? And why did it react like that?" John sighed, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. "I told you before, Earth was a testing ground for alien civilizations. That machine was one of their experiments. We've been trying to study it for years, but it's unpredictable. It's like it has a mind of its own." The students exchanged uneasy glances. And the collapse? One of them asked. That was the facility's defense mechanism, John explained. It's designed to protect the technology inside. If anyone tries to tamper with it, the facility self-destructs. We've seen it happen before, but never on this scale. The taller student frowned. So what happens now? Is there a risk of other facilities doing the same thing? John didn't answer right away. His silence was more unsettling than any words could have been. When they finally reached the control room, the atmosphere was chaotic. Technicians were rushing back and forth, their faces filled with panic. The holographic map of Earth was glowing brighter than before, with several new lights flashing red. What's going on? John demanded as he approached one of the technicians. The technician looked up, his face pale. Site-17's collapse triggered a chain reaction. Other facilities are waking up. And, we're picking up strange signals from deep underground. John's expression darkened. What kind of signals? The technician hesitated. It's hard to explain. It's like, something's trying to communicate. The students felt a chill run down their spines. Communicate with who? One of them asked. John shook his head. We don't know. But if these signals are coming from the experiments buried underground. He didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. Whatever was down there, it wasn't just machines. It was something alive. The taller student stepped forward. What can we do to stop it? John looked at him, his eyes filled with a mix of hope and desperation. We need to find out what's causing this. And fast. If these facilities keep waking up, it could destabilize the entire planet. The students nodded, their fear replaced by determination. They had come to Earth to study its dangers, but now they were part of something much bigger. John turned to the technicians. Pull up everything we have on Site-17 and the surrounding areas. Look for patterns, anomalies, anything that could explain what's happening. As the technicians worked, the students gathered around the holographic map, studying the flashing lights. The taller student noticed something strange. Look at this, he said, pointing to a cluster of lights in the middle of the ocean. These facilities are all connected. And they're moving. John leaned in closer, his eyes narrowing. You're right. It's like they're forming a pattern. But why? Before anyone could answer, one of the technicians called out. We've got something. The signals from underground, they're not random. They're coordinates. John rushed over to the technician's station. Coordinates for what? The technician's hands trembled as he typed on the keyboard. For a location. Deep beneath the ocean. It's like something's calling us there. The room fell silent as the weight of the discovery sank in. Whatever was beneath the ocean, it was no ordinary experiment. It was something far more powerful, and far more dangerous. John turned to the students, his expression grim. We need to investigate this. But it's going to be risky. Are you willing to come with us? The students exchanged glances. They were scared, but they also knew they couldn't back down now. We're in, the taller student said. John nodded. Then let's move. We don't have much time. As the group prepared for their next mission, the taller student couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But there was no turning back now. Earth's secrets were calling, and they had no choice but to answer. The group gathered in a large hangar, where a sleek, high-tech submarine waited to take them to the coordinates beneath the ocean. The students couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear as they boarded the vessel. They had never been this deep underwater before, and the thought of what they might find was both thrilling and terrifying. As the submarine descended into the dark, cold waters, John briefed the group on the plan. The coordinates point to a location about 2 miles below the surface. We don't know what's down there, but we need to be prepared for anything. Stay close, follow my lead, and don't touch anything unless I say so. The students nodded, their eyes wide with anticipation. The taller student, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. John, what if this is a trap? What if whatever's down there is luring us in? John hesitated, his expression grim. It's possible. But we don't have a choice. If we don't figure out what's causing these signals, the entire planet could be at risk. The submarine continued its descent, the darkness outside the windows growing thicker with every passing minute. The students watched in awe as strange, bioluminescent creatures swam past, their glowing bodies lighting up the water like tiny stars. Finally, the submarine reached the ocean floor. The coordinates led them to a massive, ancient structure that looked like a cross between a temple and a machine. Its walls were covered in the same strange symbols they had seen at the other facilities, but these seemed to pulse with a faint, otherworldly light. This is it, John said, his voice barely above a whisper. Let's move. The group suited up in protective gear and stepped out of the submarine, their boots sinking into the soft, muddy seabed. The water was cold and heavy, pressing down on them as they approached the structure. As they entered, the students were struck by the sheer size of the place. The walls stretched high above them, and the air was filled with a low, rhythmic hum, like the heartbeat of some giant creature. What is this place? One of the students whispered. John shook his head. We don't know. But it's clearly connected to the other facilities. Maybe it's some kind of control center. The group moved deeper into the structure, following the hum. The taller student couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to move, and every sound echoed like a whisper. Finally, they reached a large chamber, where a massive, glowing orb floated in the center of the room. It was similar to the one they had seen at the first facility, but much larger and more powerful. The air around it crackled with energy, and the hum grew louder as they approached. This is it, John said, his voice filled with awe. This is the source of the signals. The students stared at the orb, their minds racing with questions. What was it? And why had it called them here? Before anyone could speak, the orb suddenly flared to life, bathing the room in a blinding light. The students shielded their eyes as a voice echoed through the chamber, a deep, resonant voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You have come, the voice said. At last. The students froze, their hearts pounding. Who are you? The taller student asked, his voice trembling. I am the Guardian, the voice replied. The keeper of Earth's secrets. And you are the key. The students exchanged confused glances. The key to what? The orb's light dimmed slightly, revealing a holographic image of Earth. But it wasn't the Earth they knew. The continents were different, and the oceans glowed with a strange, unnatural light. This is the true Earth, the Guardian said. The Earth that was, and the Earth that will be. Long ago, this planet was a paradise, home to a civilization far more advanced than yours. But they grew arrogant. They sought to control the universe, and in their hubris, they destroyed themselves. The students stared at the image, their minds struggling to process what they were hearing. The experiments you have seen, the Guardian continued, are remnants of their technology. But they are also warnings. If you continue down the same path, you will meet the same fate. John stepped forward, his face pale. What do you mean? What are we supposed to do? The orb's light flickered, and the image of Earth changed again, showing a future where the planet was barren and lifeless. You must learn from the past, the Guardian said. You must choose a different path. Or this will be your future. The room fell silent as the weight of the Guardian's words sank in. The students felt a mix of fear and hope. They had come to Earth to study its dangers, but now they were being asked to save it. What do we need to do? The taller student asked. The orb's light dimmed, and the voice grew softer. The choice is yours. But know this, the fate of Earth, and the galaxy, rests in your hands. As the light faded, the students were left standing in the dark, their minds racing with questions. They had uncovered the truth about Earth's past, but now they faced an even greater challenge, shaping its future. The group stood in silence, the Guardian's words echoing in their minds. The weight of the responsibility they now carried was almost too much to bear. The taller student finally broke the silence. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice trembling. John took a deep breath, his face serious. "We need to get this information back to the control room. If the Guardian is right, we have to warn everyone, not just the humans, but the entire galaxy." The students nodded, but one of them, a quiet, observant student who had stayed in the background until now, looked uneasy. His name was Zorak, and he had always been the most cautious of the group. "What if the Guardian is lying?" Zorak asked. "What if this is just another test?" John frowned. "We can't take that risk. If there's even a chance the Guardian is telling the truth, we have to act." The group began to make their way back to the submarine, their minds racing with questions. But as they walked, Zorak lingered behind, his eyes darting nervously. When they reached the submarine, John noticed Zorak's hesitation. "Is something wrong?" he asked. Zorak shook his head quickly. "No, nothing. I'm just thinking." John studied him for a moment but said nothing. The group boarded the submarine and began the ascent back to the surface. As they rose through the dark waters, the taller student couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He glanced at Zorak, who was sitting quietly in the corner, his hands clenched tightly. "Zorak," the taller student said, "are you sure you're okay?" Zorak looked up, his eyes filled with guilt. I need to tell you something." The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at him. "What is it?" John asked, his voice tense. Zorak took a deep breath. "I'm not who you think I am. I was sent here, to spy on you." The students gasped, their eyes wide with shock. "What are you talking about?" the taller student demanded. Zorak looked down, unable to meet their eyes. "My people, they've been watching Earth for a long time. They knew about the ancient technology, and they wanted it for themselves. They sent me here to gather information and report back." John's face turned pale. "So all of this, the facilities, the Guardian, your people know about it?" Zorak nodded. "Yes. And they're planning to take it. They don't care about the warnings. They just want the power." The room fell silent as the weight of Zorak's betrayal sank in. The students felt a mix of anger and fear. They had trusted him, and now he had put them all in danger. "Why are you telling us this now?" John asked. Zorak looked up, his eyes filled with regret. "Because I've seen what Earth is really like. I've seen the dangers, but I've also seen the good. The humans, you're not perfect, but you're trying. And I don't want my people to destroy that." John studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you for telling us. But we need to act fast. If your people are coming, we have to be ready." The taller student stepped forward. "What can we do?" John thought for a moment. "We need to secure the facilities. If Zorak's people try to take the technology, we have to stop them. And we need to warn the galaxy about the Guardian's warning." Zorak shook his head. "It's too late. My people are already on their way. They'll be here soon." The room fell silent as the reality of the situation set in. They were running out of time. John turned to the students, his expression grim. "We need to split up. Some of us will go back to the control room to prepare for the attack. Others will stay here and try to protect the facilities." The students nodded, their fear replaced by determination. They had come to Earth to study its dangers, but now they were fighting to protect it. As the submarine reached the surface, the group prepared for the battle ahead. They didn't know what would happen, but they knew one thing: they couldn't let Earth's secrets fall into the wrong hands. The group emerged from the submarine to find the control room in chaos. Alarms blared, and technicians rushed back and forth, their faces filled with panic. The holographic map of Earth was glowing brighter than ever, with dozens of red lights flashing across the surface. "What's going on?" John demanded as he approached a technician. The technician looked up, his face pale. "We're picking up multiple signals from space. It looks like a fleet of ships is heading toward Earth." The student's heart sank. Zorak's people were coming, and they were coming fast. John turned to the group, his expression grim. "We don't have much time. We need to secure the facilities and prepare for the attack." The taller student stepped forward. "What can we do to help?" John thought for a moment. "We need to split into teams. Some of us will stay here to coordinate the defense. Others will go to the most critical facilities and make sure they're protected." The students nodded, their fear replaced by determination. They had come to Earth to study its dangers, but now they were fighting to protect it. Zorak, who had been silent since his confession, finally spoke up. "I want to help. I know how my people think. I can give you an advantage." John studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right. But you'll need to prove we can trust you." Zorak nodded, his eyes filled with resolve. "I will." The group quickly divided into teams. John and a few humans stayed in the control room to coordinate the defense, while the taller student, Zorak, and a small group of humans headed to the nearest facility. As they drove through the dark, empty streets, the taller student couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The city was eerily quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. When they reached the facility, they found it already under attack. Alien soldiers, tall, armored figures with glowing weapons, were trying to break in. The humans guarding the facility were putting up a fight, but they were outnumbered. "We need to help them," the taller student said, his voice tense. Zorak nodded. "I'll take the lead. I know how to disable their weapons." The group moved quickly, using the cover of darkness to get closer to the alien soldiers. Zorak led the way, his knowledge of his people's technology proving invaluable. With a few well-placed shots, he disabled the soldiers' weapons, giving the humans the upper hand. The battle was intense, but the group managed to push the alien soldiers back. As the last soldier fell, the taller student turned to Zorak. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with relief. Zorak nodded, but his expression was grim. "This is just the beginning. My people won't stop until they get what they want." Back at the control room, John was monitoring the situation. The holographic map showed multiple battles taking place across the planet. The alien fleet was closing in, and Earth's defenses were stretched thin. "We need to do something," one of the technicians said, his voice filled with desperation. John nodded, his mind racing. "We need to send a message to the galaxy. If we can warn them about the Guardian's warning, maybe we can get help." The technicians worked quickly, using the ancient technology in the facilities to send a signal into space. The message was simple but urgent: Earth is in danger. The galaxy is in danger. We need your help. As the signal went out, the group could only hope it would reach someone in time. Meanwhile, the alien fleet reached Earth's atmosphere. The ships were massive, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. The humans and the students watched in horror as the ships began to descend, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. "This is it," John said, his voice filled with determination. "We make our stand here." The students nodded, their fear replaced by resolve. They had come to Earth to study its dangers, but now they were fighting to protect it. And they knew one thing: they couldn't let the galaxy's future be destroyed by greed and arrogance. The alien ships loomed in the sky, their dark silhouettes casting long shadows over the earth. The humans and the alien students stood together, their hearts pounding as they prepared for the battle ahead. John barked orders to the human soldiers, his voice steady despite the chaos. Hold the line. Protect the facilities at all costs. The taller student turned to Zorak, his face filled with determination. We need to do something. We can't just stand here and wait for them to attack. Zorak nodded, his eyes scanning the sky. I have an idea. If we can get to one of their ships, we might be able to disable their weapons from the inside. The taller student hesitated. That's suicide. Maybe, Zorak said. But it's our best chance. Before the taller student could respond, the alien ships opened fire. Bright beams of energy rained down from the sky, striking the ground with explosive force. The humans and students scattered, taking cover behind buildings and debris. We need to move now. Zorak shouted over the noise. The taller student nodded, and the two of them sprinted toward a nearby alien ship that had landed to deploy troops. The ship was heavily guarded, but Zorak's knowledge of his people's technology gave them an edge. Stay close, Zorak said as they approached the ship. I'll disable the guards. Using a small device he had brought with him, Zorak jammed the guards' weapons, giving the two of them just enough time to slip inside the ship. The interior of the ship was dark and cold, filled with strange, glowing machinery. Zorak led the way, his movements quick and precise. We need to find the control room, he said. If we can shut down their weapons, we can give the humans a fighting chance. The taller student followed closely, his heart racing. He had never been inside an alien ship before, and the experience was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. As they moved deeper into the ship, they encountered more guards. Zorak used his device to disable their weapons, but the guards were quick to adapt. The two of them were forced to fight hand-to-hand, their movements desperate and uncoordinated. Finally, they reached the control room. Zorak quickly began typing on the ship's console, his fingers flying over the strange symbols. I'm in, he said. I'm shutting down their weapons. The taller student watched as the console's lights flickered and dimmed. Outside, the alien ship's weapons stopped firing, giving the humans a much-needed reprieve. But their victory was short-lived. The ship's alarms began to blare, and the console's lights turned red. What's happening? The taller student asked, his voice filled with panic. Zorak's face turned pale. They've detected us. The ship's going to self-destruct. The two of them sprinted out of the control room, their hearts pounding as they raced against time. The ship's corridors were filled with smoke and sparks, and the floor beneath them shook violently. Just as they reached the exit, the ship exploded, sending a shockwave through the air. The taller student and Zorak were thrown to the ground, their ears ringing from the blast. As they struggled to their feet, they saw the alien fleet retreating. The humans had used the distraction to launch a counterattack, their weapons striking the alien ships with deadly precision. We did it, the taller student said, his voice filled with disbelief. Zorak nodded, but his expression was grim. This isn't over. My people won't give up that easily. Back at the control room, John watched as the alien ships disappeared into the sky. The battle was over, for now, but the war was far from won. We need to prepare for their next move, he said, his voice filled with determination. And we need to send another message to the galaxy. If we're going to survive this, we need allies. The students nodded, their fear replaced by resolve. They had come to Earth to study its dangers, but now they were fighting to protect it. And they knew one thing, they couldn't let the galaxy's future be destroyed by greed and arrogance. The alien fleet retreated, leaving Earth battered but unbroken. The humans and the alien students stood together, their faces filled with exhaustion but also hope. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. John gathered the group in the control room, his expression serious but determined. We've bought ourselves some time, but we need to act fast. If we're going to stop Zorak's people from coming back, we need to unite the galaxy. The taller student stepped forward. How do we do that? The galaxy doesn't trust Earth. They see us as a death world, a place of danger and destruction. John nodded. That's why we need to show them the truth. Earth isn't just a death world, it's a symbol of resilience and hope. We've survived against all odds, and we've learned from the mistakes of the past. If we can share that message, maybe we can inspire others to stand with us. The students exchanged glances, their minds racing with possibilities. Zorak, who had been quiet since the battle, finally spoke up. I can help, he said. I know how my people think. If we can show them the Guardian's warning, maybe we can make them see the truth. John studied him for a moment, then nodded. All right. But we need to act fast. The longer we wait, the more time they have to regroup. The group worked together to prepare a message for the galaxy. Using the ancient technology in the facilities, they created a holographic recording of the Guardian's warning, along with footage of Earth's struggles and triumphs. The message was simple but powerful: the galaxy is at a crossroads. We can repeat the mistakes of the past, or we can choose a different path. The choice is yours. As the message was broadcast into space, the group could only hope it would reach someone in time. Days turned into weeks, and the tension on Earth grew. The humans and the students worked tirelessly to repair the damage from the battle and strengthen their defenses. But they knew it wouldn't be enough if the alien fleet returned. Then, one day, a signal came through. It was faint at first, but as the technicians worked to amplify it, the message became clear. It's from another planet, one of the technicians said, his voice filled with excitement. They've seen our message, and they want to help. The room erupted into cheers as more signals began to come in. Planets from across the galaxy were responding to Earth's call, offering their support and resources. John turned to the students, his face filled with gratitude. You did it. You showed them the truth. The taller student shook his head. We all did it. Together. As the galaxy united to protect Earth, the alien fleet returned, but this time, they were met with a united front. Ships from dozens of planets joined forces with the humans, their weapons glowing with energy as they prepared to defend Earth. The battle was fierce, but this time, the humans and their allies had the upper hand. The alien fleet was forced to retreat, their ships damaged and their spirits broken. As the last of the alien ships disappeared into the sky, the humans and their allies celebrated their victory. But the real victory wasn't in the battle, it was in the unity and courage they had shown. The students stood together, their hearts filled with pride. They had come to Earth to study its dangers, but they had learned so much more. They had learned about resilience, about hope, and about the power of unity. As they prepared to return to their home planets, the taller student turned to John. Thank you, he said. For showing us what Earth is really about. John smiled. Thank you for standing with us. You've shown the galaxy that we're stronger together. The students boarded their ship, their hearts filled with hope for the future. As they looked back at Earth, they knew they would never forget the lessons they had learned. The galaxy was still full of dangers, but it was also full of possibilities. And as long as they stood together, they could face anything.